A very good afternoon to you all. Uh, Pandit Madam, Parimal Sir, and dear students. I know on a Sunday after lunch, we are meeting to talk on Constitution. So basically when we talk about technicalities, law, this is not the right time post-lunch. It would have been always in the pre-lunch because post-lunch in the court is only bail and remands and not arguments. So either your liberty is detained or you're on bail. So the argument takes place for 5 minutes and then either of it is decided in a court. Okay? And all detailed arguments of the trial take place in the pre-lunch session. Now here we have a different thing that I'll be talking on constitution, democracy, a constitutional framework of democracy, and a shared future in a post-lunch session where I'll be talking about liberty, and you will be cursing me for that post-lunch I am detained here. Okay, so you can definitely, and I can definitely understand that how it has difficult for me to talk on this part. Let us come to our topic. When we talk about democracy, and 2 days we'll be discussing about it. And one thing which will be very common about it is how do you define democracy, and Abraham Lincoln comes in. Okay, so a government by the people, for the people, of the people, and you'll be listening to this many a time. When we talk about democracy, what comes to our mind first? Okay, let us have some interaction and come to constitution. I'll give you some baseline that how constitution has perceived democracy, and then what are challenges we are facing right now, and then how do you look at it? Okay, so we'll start with some interaction. When it comes to democracy, what comes to your mind first? Freedom. Absolutely, democracy should guarantee freedom. Okay, and democracy should guarantee rights, and what does democracy do with duty as such? Because then I'll take this part. Okay, freedom, right, and duties. All the three things we'll discuss. Right? Again, when you talk about democracy, what is the first thing which comes to our mind? A political structure. Right? Democracy basically is a political structure. Now, this political structure, we expect that should guarantee you freedom, should guarantee you rights, or when we talk about duty, whose duty it is? In democracy, we actually say the state has a duty towards me. It's not about I have duty towards state. Right? Now, the point is that when we talk about democracy as a political structure, as a state, okay, it technically means that democracy, demos means people. It is ruled by the people. And ruled by the people, how it is? So in India, we have a Westminster model. The Westminster model is about parliamentary form of democracy, where people elect their legislatures, lawmakers, and the lawmakers elect their executives. In America, there's a presidential form of democracy where the people elect their executives independently, the legislatures independently. But we have a democracy where we elect member of parliament. We don't elect a prime minister, right? We never voted for prime minister. We voted for member of parliament. And the majority of member of parliament will elect an executive, the prime minister and the cabinet. That is a Westminster model. Now, that is how we have an indirect democracy. 2012, Anna Hazare came up with something calling that, you know what happened? People are sovereign, and therefore, everything should be decided on Ramlila Maidan, not in parliament. Okay? Now, this was quite appealing to the youths at that time. But what was the problem, you know? Such type of direct democracy cannot function. It functions in a very small clan. So in Rig Veda, you have reference to this. In Buddhist texts, you have reference to this. Buddhist texts, you have reference to Janapadas. You have reference to republics. So what is this? This was basically limited to clans. And the members of the clan come together and decide. That's easy. Means, for example, we in the class will take a call that what should we do now? That's fine. But that can happen with a country with 130 crores. Okay? So we don't have a direct form of democracy to a large extent, but with the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment, where we brought Panchayat Raj, and we made democracy to be a three-tier democracy. What is the three-tier democracy? Democracy of the center, parliament, of the state legislature, and Gram Panchayat and local bodies. We brought an idea of Gram Sabha. And in Gram Sabha, the village comes together and decide. We brought an idea of PESA Act, where the tribals will decide for themselves. So coming to a part, what type of democracy we have? We have a direct democracy, limited only in case of Gram Sabhas, and we have an indirect democracy, where we have a Westminster model. How is this model, Westminster model is? We would elect a member of parliament, or we would elect a state legislative member of state legislative assembly, and they will decide the executives, prime minister and the council of minister, or chief minister and the council of minister. Fine? Now this is what your constitution says. Okay? So when I bring this Bear Act, there's no political statement into this. Right? So I've been using it long before a political leader started using it. I'm teaching law for the last 25 years. So it's 16 years is a very old introduction, take copied from the college website. I'm teaching law for 25 years. I'm teaching constitution for 25 years. I'm using this Bear Act for the last 25 years. So when I'm using this, there's no political statement to this, just a caveat. Coming to a point that we have this part. Now, another part, you know what happened? Oldest democracy in Greece. What is it? Athens? Right? Now, problem with Athens was that not everybody were participating in decision making. Slaves were not allowed. Women were not allowed. Non-citizens were not allowed. So, only a handful of people would come and participate. And that is the oldest democracy. Even in India, we say that we had those Janapadas, and they were only for the clans. So they will decide among themselves, others are not allowed. Okay? Now, how did the democratic process start in India? Now, let us come to the colonial part. My whole part is to take you to the constitution aspect, and we'll talk about democracy as a value. Okay? How did this started in India? The colonial part comes that 1857 War of Independence take place. After 1857 War of Independence, the Government of India Act 1858 comes in, where the Governor General started controlling, the Queen started controlling, and then Indians started making representations saying that, you know what happened, that you should give us some stake in the decision making. And then the 1919 Act comes, 1909 Act comes, 1919 Act comes, Government of India Act, Government of 1935 comes, and then we create, in this whole process, legislative assemblies and central bodies. Okay? Now, who were the voters there? I'm coming to the major part, which I'm linked to Athens. Who were the voters at the time? Who were the voters? Before independence, for the provincial assemblies, who were the voters? See, B.G. Kher was the chief minister of Mumbai. Okay? Dr. Ambedkar got elected to Mumbai Prant. Point is, who were the voters there? All citizens were not voters. Right? So when the constitution was about to frame, at that time the question which came up was, do we make all the citizens of India to be voters? So the question was universal adult franchise. And the debate was that, at that time the literacy rate was 17%. 17. Literacy rate was 17%, and 80% population was below poverty line. Fine? They say that people who are illiterate and people who are poor, can they make a wise decision of electing their representatives? And there was a lot of debate which went in Constituent Assembly. But the Constituent Assembly decided that no, nothing doing, irrespective of religion, race, sex, caste, creed, everything, every citizen who is above the age of 21 will be eligible to participate in the democratic process and will be eligible to vote. The amendment was brought by Mr. Rajiv Gandhi in 1988-89, where the age was reduced to 18 years. Now imagine something, why I'm talking this, because democracy was always considered to be an elitist idea. They say that democracy would not survive, would not sustain in a country where there is low income group, where there is illiteracy, or where the group is not homogeneous. So democracy sustains with a high income group or with a middle class, where there is a lot of literacy and there are homogeneous groups. So India had all the negatives at the time. Poverty, religion, race, caste, language, all differences. Literacy rate is less. And we said nothing doing, but we'll allow these people to participate. I have some statistics with you. We are celebrating 75 years of the Constitution. Okay. So, the survival of the Constitution for 75 years is a miracle for me. Why? I'll just read some statistics for you. See, the American Constitution was created in 4 months, and the Bill of Rights came after 2 years. Canadian Constitution for 2 years, 5 months. South African Constitution in 1 year, that is to 1908, 1909, but it was again been replaced by 1994 Constitution. Let me tell you something, some statistics here which will interest you. All the constitutions in and around subcontinent has collapsed. You know how much time did the Pakistan Constituent Assembly took to draft it? 7 years, right? Absolutely right. Pakistan Constituent Assembly took 7 years to produce the Constitution of Islamic Republic, right? Because in 1956 they brought the first constitution. 2 years later, 1958, there was a coup, and it was taken over by a dictator. And later on, 3 to 4 times, the constitution changed. Now, interestingly, the judiciary in Pakistan has to frequently do what I called as a juristic witchcraft to justify every new regime. So now, Pakistan is a failed state. Why? The constitution has not worked there. Okay? The military has taken over. The military decide when to take elections, when not to take elections. Constitution of Ceylon, that is Sri Lanka, in 1948, it was rewritten and redone, and the new constitution also collapsed with what happened in near past. Okay? Burmese constitution, which was drafted in 1947, it collapsed. Its governance was taken over by general. Bangladesh constitution, now Bangladesh war and everything, and you know what happened in Bangladesh now. It collapsed, it failed. Even a small Nepal. What happened in Nepal? They drafted constitution, the monarchy was taken away, then they brought democracy, and now the monarch are coming on street saying that let us have monarchy again. To tell you that post World War, all those countries around India which got independence and created the constitution, they failed in South Asia. And they failed for the similar reason that diversity, illiteracy, low income group, democracy cannot sustain. Okay? So the question comes, what made democracy sustain in India? Except the emergency in 1975 to 1976-77, 2 years, democracy sustained in India. What makes democracy, Indian constitution, survive in all these years? And then that goes to the geniusness of the framers of the constitution. What is the definition of democracy we spoke about initially? Abraham Lincoln. What is it? Government by the people, of the people, for the people. Okay. Now, when we talk about this whole part of definition of government by the people, of the people, for the people, we're talking about a political structure. Dr. Ambedkar gives another definition. And he says that, what do you mean by democracy? He said democracy is that form of government where you bring a social and economic change in the lives of the people without a bloodshed. Right? Now, if that is the whole objective of running a democratic society, that we are not talking about elections every year. We are not talking about election every 5 years. We are talking about social change, economic change. And now again I'll take back to what has happened interestingly in India and what has not happened in Pakistan, why Pakistan failed. Okay? And that whole credit goes to this constitution. And what did happen? In 1930s onwards, when Gandhi came on Indian scenario, Congress came up with an agenda of abolition of zamindaris. Initially, Congress was a elite lawyers club. All lawyers coming together, making petition to the Queen and the King and asking for some concessions. It was Mr. Gandhi for the first time he said that no, let us have a mass movement, go to people, work with people. The original Gandhi, right? Work with people, let us take people together. And then what he did was that he started coming with the agenda of people. So untouchability became an agenda of Congress. Abolition of zamindaris, or the tillers will get a land, became an agenda. And therefore, that was an agenda pre-independence. You know, India got independence, and this whole project of India getting independence was a project of decolonization. Pakistan got independence, and the whole project of Pakistan is a separatist movement. So Pakistan is not the whole process of decolonization. Pakistan is a project of a separatist movement. And therefore, a separatist movement has no idea of decolonizing things. Fine? So what happens there? No land reforms comes in. India for the first 25 years saw major cases in Supreme Court regarding land reforms. Okay? And with this land reforms, what we say that democracy is a process by which we bring social and economic change in the lives of the people. Okay? That was assured, that was guaranteed. The middle class which we see now in India is a product of this last 25 years. Okay? Because in the last few years, this middle class was created, bringing surplus with agricultural lands, distribution of resources, you find that we have people who can sustain democracy because they get something from democracy. Now, when you talk about democracy, my larger theme is this, that there are two types of democracies. One is the electoral democracy. And we have succeeded a lot in that, right? Except that emergency part. Every 5 years, we have a very successful election process implemented in India. And for that, we have a constitutional body called as Election Commission under the Constitution. So, Election Commission of India looks into the election of the President of India, the Vice President of India, election to the Lok Sabha, election to the Rajya Sabha, election to the Legislative Assemblies. Election for the local bodies are taken care by the State Election Commission. So understand your constitution. This is what it does. Okay? No need of telling you provisions. Fine? So, electoral democracy, we have succeeded. We have a high rate of success in that. How many Lok Sabhas we have done till now? 18. And how many Vidhan Sabhas we have done till now? We have lost the count. Right? So, that happens. The second part is about liberal democracy. What is liberal democracy? Once you elect a government, till the next 5 years, How does the government operate? And then the question comes, you spoke about rights, right? Some of you spoke about what is democracy comes to your, what come to your mind when you talk about democracy? Rights. Here actually your democracy process starts. Okay? So, when the government comes to power, how do you control your government? And then the whole chapter of your fundamental rights is the chapter on your democratic rights. It says that you have right to equality, you have freedom of speech and expression, you have freedom of association, you have freedom of movement, you have freedom of life and liberty. Okay? You have freedom not to be discriminated. Now, all these rights, civic rights and political rights we're talking about, okay? All the civic and political rights you're talking about, these are something which we talk about liberal democracy. Now, my question is, how do you look at liberal democracy in India? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is the least and 10 is the highest. How will you rate liberal democracy in India? Ma'am said 4. Seven? 8? And? Okay, I'll ask you reasons for that. Huh? 4, 7, 8. See what happens that when we speak about 8, also, all those who are interested can read 2 or 3 reports. One is Freedom House, which is of USA. Second is Economist Intelligence Unit of UK, WDM of Sweden. This report actually speaks about the downgrading India's ranking in democracy and its ranking in rights and liberties. Okay, these are international bodies who evaluate you, and the evaluation is on electoral democracy, liberal democracy, participatory democracy, deliberative democracy, and egalitarian democracy. There are 5 markers, indices. Okay, liberal democracy. How do you look at it? How much? 4, 7, 8? Have you heard this parody song recently? What is it? Thane ki rickshaw? Have you heard about it? No, I have not heard this. Right? So how do you rate it? So what is it about? How the state takes criticism. How does the state take criticism? This is one major parameter on which your liberal democracy will be judged. How independent are the media houses? Right? Okay. An honest journalist. Is an oxymoron. An honest journalist in last 10, 20 years, whom do you recollect? If there are very few, your rating should be less than 4 and 5 to liberal democracy then. Okay? Because one of the essence of democracy is criticism. I don't say so. Our Honorable Prime Minister said in a podcast. Right? Criticism is the essence of democracy. So, we take the same parameter and we say that how the government sustains criticism. So, government usually takes 2 kinds of arguments against free speech. Okay? All type of governments are not about this government I'm talking about. I'll speak about at the time of Mrs. Indira Gandhi, what Mamata Banerjee does or anybody does. Just take all type of government. Usually what happens is that the government takes 2 types of arguments regarding free speech. Now, free speech is part of your right to freedom of speech and expression, Article 19(1)(a). But they'll try to control it. And how they'll control it? They'll take 2 arguments. One, it offends the sentiments and honors of the certain group. Now, in a country which is so diverse, definitely it is going to offend some other group. Okay? Or another important part which we don't have answers for is it hurts national interest. Okay? So when you ask them that, can you tell us what is there in raffle? Don't ask, it hurts national interest. Okay? So free speech is curtailed by all types of democratic, all type of governments once they get elected in democratic process by two arguments. One, it hurts the sentiments of a group of citizens, feelings or honor of a group of citizens, and or second one, it is against national interest. The more we hear this argument, the lesser we are in liberal democracy. Okay? So that is one thing you have to keep in mind. You have heard about emergency? We had a provision in our constitution, which says that the central government can declare emergency on the ground of internal disturbance. So Mrs. Indira Gandhi lost an election. Rather, she won an election, but she lost a case in Allahabad High Court. And Allahabad High Court said that you are disqualified for 6 years. So at that moment, she was the Prime Minister, she declared emergency. Because the opposition were demanding resignation. She has internal disturbance. Later on, after emergency was called back and the new Janata Party came, they made an amendment to the constitution, and by making an amendment to the constitution, they say that emergency could be imposed on the grounds of armed rebellion. Right? Now, understand one thing, is emergency democratic or undemocratic? Undemocratic. But it is not unconstitutional, because you have a provision of it in your constitution, right? So, what is the point I want to make? Not necessarily all that you call to be constitutional happen to be democratic. Right? Our topic is constitution and democracy. Our democracy flows from the constitution. But let us be very clear, not necessarily all that happens to be in the constitution should be democratic or could be democratic. It could be undemocratic also. So if you want to end democracy, what would any government do? Number one, it will have an supremacy of the executives. Supreme power. मन करे सो प्राण दे, जो मन करे सो प्राण ले. वही तो सर्वशक्तिमान है. वो जो है ना पीयूष मिश्रा वाला, बस वही है. Supreme power. That is one thing. So supreme executive supremacy unrestricted by any judicial scrutiny. And the second one is detention without trial. आपको अंदर कर दिया, बाद में ट्रायल ही नहीं हो रहा है. Now, if you find these two parameters anywhere in an elected democracy, that people are detained without trial and the executive is not answerable to anyone, okay? Liberal democracy indices says in that case your rating would come down. Okay? Thing is that, are you answerable? Are people scared of you? Okay. Second one is about India is a federal country. And you know what type of federalism we have? We have a federalism where, because of federal is, okay, that is what we talk about in an American context. We have federalism where states are created on the basis of language. You know what happened because of that? We also have a linguistic nationalism with us. And we also have an interest of our languages there. Okay. Yeah, you can settle down fast because they're calling you here. Huh? Unless you settle down, they will not listen to me. Yeah. Okay. So, when you talk about federalism, Have you heard something called as double engine ki sarkar? What is it? Same government in Delhi and state government in state. How democratic it would be? Because we have government elected, na? That is something which is constitutional framework. How democratic it would be? Okay. In a federal structure, so federalism is affected. Democracy would potentially be under serious threat if the same party rules in Delhi and in all state, unless the party was committed to democratic value, not to perpetuate in power of the hooks by hooks and crooks. And this is not what this government says, even at Congress high period. The major problem was that the chief minister was changed because the high command didn't like them. Okay? Many of us think they say that there is no inter-party democracy. So when we talk about democracy, it is about your civil liberties. It is about federal structure. It is about to listen the voice of the people who are not been heard. Let me take you to some theoretic thing because I heard that you have to write something on this. Okay, so आपको अगर project में लिखना होगा तो लिखने के लिए आपको कुछ content चाहिए. So there are basically 5 pillars of democracy. One is election of the executives and election of the legislatures. This is one pillar, and that we all have in place, right? Every 5 years we elect the member of parliament, and the member of parliament elect the government. That is very much in place. So the first pillar of democracy is very much there, and therefore we say that for last 75 years we have a democratic constitution and democracy functioning. The second one is a genuine political competition. Okay? We need to have a leader of opposition, and we need to have a genuine political competition. And here my point of federalism comes in. Federalism is a diverse opinion of the people of different parts of the states with their own agenda, negotiating with the center. If we have people in power of the same political party in the center and the state, it will reduce competition. Same point is that if you have, Nehru used to get elected for 3 years consecutively. And Dr. Ambedkar, before his death, had a negotiation, had a dialogue with Ramana Lohiya. And he said that we should have a strong opposition and let us merge together and have a new political party. That is what he had an idea of Republican Party of India. So he said that democracy is meaningless unless and until we have a genuine political opposition. And therefore, wiping up an opposition is very much an undemocratic process. Not in the interest of the citizens, maybe in the interest of the people in power, but not in the interest of citizens. So this is the second pillar of democracy. The third pillar of democracy is that governmental autonomy. Now when I talk about autonomy, that has nothing to do with here. Earlier we had a government before independence in 1935 by the 1935 Act in various provinces. But they were in the colonies, they were answerable to the Queen in Parliament. And therefore, there is no governmental autonomy. Whatever laws which were passed by the state legislature at any point of time, the Governor General would have vetoed it because the Queen never liked it. Okay? So, if you have an elected government, they make a law, but the colonial masters don't like it, we don't say it is a democratic process. Similarly, you have an elected government, you make a law, but the military elite don't like it. Like it happened in Pakistan. Right? So we don't say it's a democratic country. Or the Khomeini don't like it. Right? We don't say it's a democratic country. So understand, democracy is not merely about voting at one time and getting person elected. It is a complete process, a way of life. So, governmental autonomy is the third pillar. The fourth one is civil liberties, which I spoke about now. Freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom to love, freedom to live, freedom to travel. How far your freedoms are protected? The more the society protect this freedom, the more liberal the society is, the more democratic the society is. I don't like you, but still I have to tolerate you. That is what democracy is about. Still I have to accept you. That is what democracy is about. If democracy is something that, no, I don't like you, therefore just go away. It's not about democracy then, right? It's authoritarianism. And the last one is executive checks. Now the executives are checked, one, every 5 years by people through election. Second is by the court and the legislature. So how independent your judiciary is and how effective your legislative bodies are. These are the 5 pillars of democracy. And if you see these 5 pillars, I want you to write a note on your own that, taking illustrations, how do you evaluate today's democracy? Okay? Or take any time period, 1950 to 1925, 2025. How do you evaluate that time? कि कैसा चल रहा था? Nehruvian period, there was no genuine opposition. There was no strong opposition. Not genuine, it was genuine, but not a strong opposition. For me, if there is something which is very electorally good and a genuine opposition part, I'll say it was during the decades of 90s, where we had hung parliaments. The opposition was more genuine. And you'll find maximum laws which were in the interest of the people were passed in those periods. So right to information, right to education, and take all your right-based, right to work. Okay? मनरेगा वाला कानून ये सब ये कब आया? जब opposition strong है. Right? So this is what comes in. Democracy is about deliberation. It is about consultation. It's not about just mere election and you elect an autocrat. It's not about that. It is more about you elect a government who represent you, and when he represents you, he's concerned about you. And who are you? You are the one who are the authority who have elected the government and who are the stakeholder who will enjoy the civil liberties. At any point of time, your civil liberties are at stake. At that time, we don't say that we are living in a democratic process. So, we are democratic because we have elections. And we are autocratic because the elected government doesn't want us to speak, to sing, to dance, to accommodate, to live with each other. And they have an agenda for that. Amrita Sen says, democracy has to be judged not just by the institutions. So institutions are of, you can say, parliament, judiciary, executives, right? Or the prime minister and the president. Democracy has to be judged not just by the institutions that formally exist, but by the extent to which the different voices from diverse sections of the people can actually be heard. Okay. So to what extent, in his book Argumentative Indians, he makes this statement. To what extent we hear the diverse opinions? Or we just want to rule it out? We want to give it unheard. Right? So coming to our constitution, what does our constitution promises you? Your preamble, which you might have always read n number of times. This preamble actually speaks about a promise. It's an utopian idea. It's not in existence. It was not in existence at that time. But speaks about a promise. And the promise is that we, the people of India, what do? Having solemnly resolved to constitute a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and is secure to all its citizens, and here your promise comes in, your democratic promise comes in. Justice, economic, political, and socio-economic, political. Liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship. Equality of status and of opportunity. and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. This is not in existence, but this is the promise which is made by the framers of the Constitution. This is the utopian idea, but this is what the goal we want to walk. Okay? It is always said about a conservative, progressive conservative party member that he's facing towards the front and walking backward. So he always said, मेरा तो ये ना, मैं आगे देख रहा हूँ, लेकिन चल कहाँ रहा है वो? पीछे. हमारा यही हो रहा है कि we are facing towards front. The point is that in what direction are we walking? Socio-economic political, Dr. Ambedkar's speech on 25th of November 1949 is very interesting. He says that on 26th of November we are going to adopt this constitution, right? He says that tomorrow we are going to enter into an age of contradiction. At one point we'll have one man, one vote, one value, everybody politically equal. But at other point of time, we will not have social equality and economic equality. Now he says that all those who come to power thereafter has a duty that they convert a political democracy into a social and economic democracy as early as possible. If you're not able to convert a political democracy into a social and economic democracy, the people who are have-nots okay, will destroy the whole structure. So why do you find from Nepal till Tirupati, the whole Naxal movement, they are the people who ask for social democracy and economic democracy, and when the state has not delivered them, the Adivasis, the Dalits, the marginalized, they started taking weapons in the hands. Same with Northeast, same with other parts. So the point is that a political democracy, that is one man, one vote, and electing every 5 years, should have an objective of converting or bringing an economic democracy and a social democracy. You can't have a democratic structure when two persons are unequal. Okay? So we have to look at, how do you grade at social democracies? Even now, if we don't allow people to fetch water from the village well, okay? Even now, if we don't allow people to enter temples, we don't have social democracy. Even now, if people die because of hunger, we don't have economic democracy. Right? Children cannot seek education because of poverty. We don't have economic democracy. And a society which have such type of inequalities cannot have a political democracy successfully run. And therefore, the first point I made is that we brought land reforms, but that is not the first thing. That is not the last one we have to do. We have to continuously strive for an economic and social democracy. 2006, there was a report, Arjun Sen Gupta Committee report was published in 2006. Arjun Sen Gupta Committee report says that in India, 70% of people cannot spend more than 20 rupees a day. You know what do you mean by 20 rupees a day? 1 cup of chai and 1 Bisleri bottle for us, right? हम कैंटीन पे बाहर जाएंगे तो वो भी अब महंगी हो गई है. हाँ, बिस्लरी भी 20 रुपए की आती है. 20 rupees a day they cannot spend. And at the point of time, in the Forbes magazine, we have billionaires who are top ranking in the world. So you can see the whole thing that at one time India is creating the richest person of the world. At the point of time, we have a glaring poverty. And we can't have a structure function in this manner. And therefore, what we talk about democracy is we have to be participative. What is a shared future? That is the major theme of this whole part, right? What do you mean by a shared future? When you close in another 10 minutes, I know detention ends, at least from my side. You know, why are we talking about shared future? Anyone? Why are we talking about shared future? For the reason that our identities were never shared before this constitution comes in. Before this constitution comes, we had our own identities. I'm a Marathi speaking. I'm a Hindu. I'm a Muslim. I'm a Brahmin. I'm a Dalit. I'm a North Indian. I'm South Indian. I'm from this area. I'm from this community. For the first time, Constitution says that we all are citizens. And we are citizens of India. And then Constitution gives you identities. And Constitution says that no one will dominate his own identity on another. Why do I mean that? I mean this because that is what Stalin, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, is talking about. Why don't he impose Hindi on us? Don't go by your own version of history. See, he says Tamil and Malayalam and Telugu are much older languages. Don't impose your language on us. Don't impose 3-language formula on us. We had 2-language formula for last 50, 60 years, and we are doing better. The gross enrollment ratio in education is better in Tamil Nadu compared to other part of the nation. And the GDP contribution of Tamil Nadu is far better than any other part of the nation. So don't teach us that 3-language formula will be working. And if that is the case, if you're teaching Hindi to us, which is the third language which has been taught in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and other states? There you don't teach Tamil and Malayalam. So what is the point I want to make? We all had our own identities. Identities of language, of region, of we can't impose our identities on others. Right? But we can have a shared identities which are created by the Constitution. And that is what would be a shared future also. Because we never had a shared past. We have to start with what the Constitution guarantees you. And with that social contract we came together. That with all different opinions we came together and we said, we'll have these values accepted. Do you all believe in Constitution? Yes. If you don't believe, we can't stay here. And then the values of the Constitution goes in. And to this, I would like to make a few final statements and I'll close. Since I said I'll close in a few minutes. Okay? Is that, how does democracy weakens? Does it weaken? Does democracy weakens in a day? No. It weakens gradually, right? So democracy doesn't weaken overnight. It erodes slowly. When we stop questioning, when we stop caring, our silence can sometimes be more harmful than our opposition. Okay? So question. Our shared future is not written. It has to be imagined, discussed, and fought for. Let it be the one of dignity, equality, justice, and truth. This should be a shared future which we should argue for and fight for. So maybe as a citizen, if you're looking for a shared future, what you have is that you have to keep this democracy alive. And how do you keep this democracy alive? Not just showing a finger every 5 years that I have voted. Daag achhe hote hai. But also, we question, we criticize, we speak out our mind, and we accommodate differences. Differences are not to be put under the carpet or not to be just ignored. They have to be accommodated. Voltaire's famous statement, I may disagree with you, but I recognize your right to be different. And I'll fight for that right of yours. So disagreements are to be celebrated. Disagreements are to be accepted. And once you do that, you become a democratic society. So what is the theme? What is the, to nurture, what do we discuss about? We have an electoral democracy that is quite successful because we had that 18 general elections and number of state elections and local body election. In case of liberal democracy, that is between two elections, how the government functions, our parameter would come down. So how do you look at civil liberties? If if people are detained without trial for years together, then in that case, liberal democracy is in danger. And more danger is that people who know this are not questioning it. They don't speak about it. So speak out your mind. Have your voice spoken, because it's not only that we are youth that we should speak, it's because we are living human being we should speak. That is one of the basic characteristics of a human being, right? So this is what I have to say. We'll reserve this another 10 minutes for question and answer, and then we'll close the session. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. Questions?
The floor is open for questions. Anyone who wish to ask question?
Please.
So, sir, as we talk about federalism, our Prime Minister in all-party meet said about one nation, one election. So, what are your views on that? Will it be affected?
Okay, one nation, one election is a proposal where Ramnath Kovind came up with this whole part. It doesn't affect federalism per se. Because federalism is about sharing of revenue, sharing of resources, forming a government. Only one aspect where it will affect is that what happens, see, the idea of one nation, one election is this, that at one point of time you'll have election for the Lok Sabha and all the Vidhan Sabhas. What happens if the Vidhan Sabha get dissolved in 2 years or 3 years? The law says that the new election will take place for the Vidhan Sabha, that will be only for the remaining 3 years or 2 years, whatever it is. Now that is undemocratic. Because people have elected a government and they expect that the government should function for 5 years. But only for the sake of that having all elections at one point of time, you are curtailing the mandate of the people for 2 years or 3 years. And if people come to know that if we topple the government or the government fails, and new government elected will be for 3 years, people will say that let us continue with an undemocratic elected government for another 3 to 4 years, whatever remaining period is. So that is also undemocratic. So the right of the Legislative Assembly members to pass a no confidence motion will be affected by this consideration that what if the government dissolve, if we get elected, it will be only for the remaining part. So that will be deterrence. Second, people's mandate, people will not be interested in electing you because they said it's only for 2 years and 3 years. That will affect the people. And therefore, this proposal, in a sense, is undemocratic in nature.
Next question.
Yeah, this lady here.
So my question was about the language argument that's been going around right now. I agree that Tamil Nadu, I'm also from Tamil Nadu. So the language question, that they have a history of thousands of years with that language, is valid. But it also restricts immigration a lot. When people are going to a different state, they would not know the language. What is your point of view on that?
Who people are going to which state? See, I'll take you. My son is in class 10th, and he want to. My son is class 10th, and he says that I want to pursue education abroad, and then he said that if I want to study in Germany, the tuition fees will be subsidized if I know German language. So he says, can I go for German classes? So the point is that he will learn German language because there's an incentive, right?
Agreed.
The point is that why a person from Tamil Nadu should learn Hindi? What incentive he has?
I'm not talking about Hindi.
No,
we
are
are
just
also
talking about
restricting English.
Sorry?
Restrictions on the language English is also there.
I think Tamil Nadu has a 2-language formula, Tamil and English.
Some
right?
places they have started
They have-
eradicating that.
No, they have Tamil and English 2-language formula they're going, and they have a good.
In schools, no. In banners, billboards,
See,
everything.
the whole part is of NEP. The debate is about NEP. Billboards and banners is something what happens in Maharashtra also, right?
I'm talking about those because recently
That is a
Karnataka-
populistic politics. The whole part what we are talking about is the NEP formula where the government says that will not give you the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan grants if you don't adhere to and introduce a third language, Hindi, where the resistance comes in. Okay? That the major issue comes in. Billboards and banners is something fine, means that what happens in Maharashtra and that is not appreciated, is unconstitutional.